Thanks, Fred. You're back a little bit later on, I think, aren't you? So now I'm going to introduce the... let's go. Sometimes, you know, when you really feel the level of the challenge and you're like saying some words and then you're like, oh, God, it's going to be... Anyway, thanks. So we have... next we welcome Sofia Savides, Ralph Herbrick, Christina... Oh, I'm going to butcher this name. I should have checked with you before how I said this. I'm just going to say Christina and let you say your surname. And Alexander. And the moderator is Maria Moras. And the session will be exploring reducing waste and minimizing supply chain impact. Have we got these speakers here? Nice, great, thank you. Yeah. Oh, we need more chairs? Yeah, let's see more chairs. Did I do that too quickly? Maybe I did that bit too quickly. Christina, how do we say your surname? It's probably very easy, isn't it?
Okay.
I'm not sure. It's very German.
Nice.
Yeah.
Welcome to the stage.
It's all good.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. We're very excited to host this panel and have a conversation about reducing waste and the impact that it has in the supply chain. My name is Maria Moraes. I'm here today representing Circlo, an influence network of investors and startups that are trying to solve the big problems of the world. And those big problems need at some point to have an AI component, because AI is really changing the way that we can do business. And so I'm here today very interested in the topic of fashion and food industries. And the reason is, as I was preparing for this panel and having a conversation with my colleagues here, I came across some stunning statistics that I would like to share with you. So according to the United Nations Food and Agriculture Association, the global food wastage is estimated at 1.6 billion tons and a total cost of $750 billion annually. In the fashion sector, it is estimated that 85% of all of our clothes end up in landfills or burned. It is important to acknowledge, though, that around 60% of all of them cannot even be recycled to start with. So how can technology, and in particular AI, solve this problem? Let's find out. I'm joined today by 4 incredible speakers and panelists here, which I'm hoping do not agree with each other, because that's what a panel is all about, get some conversation going and different viewpoints. So starting from my left, at the further side, Sofia Savides, leader Sustainability Digital Ventures for Sustainability at Cargill. Joining us remotely, we have Ralph Herbrick, professor at the Hasso-Plattner Institute. Thank you, Ralph, for making it work for us today remotely. A beautiful background. I love the green space behind you.
And it's not a backdrop. It's real.
Here on my left, Christina Garlenne, I hope I pronounced it correctly, Sustainability Manager, Benelux and Northwest Europe Market Lead, HP. And in the center here, Alexander Kaunas, CTO at PomPom. So let's kick off by having an introduction on the work you are developing at the moment. I would start with Sofia, then moving to Ralph, Christina, and then Alexander. I will give you 3 minutes each to talk about the topic that you are working on at the moment. And if you think that minimizing the supply chain impact by working on waste management, do you think that is there a sufficient economic incentive to perform that change? Or is it necessary at all to have an economic impact to do this change? So over to you, Sofia.
Thank you, Maria. It's a great question. I think you introduced me pretty well, so I won't go into that. You all know who I am. I'll start by answering your question, and I think that will lead a little bit into what I'm currently working on. I don't think that it's a question of, is it an economic thing or is it a planet thing? I actually think we're at the stage now, and we can see kind of with our economy and the impact and the kind of condition of our planet, that these two are very much connected. And so I think having this view of is it economically feasible or viable, or is it good for our planet? I think we need to be looking at this as one going forward. And so, and you start to see a shift now, kind of in the food industry at least, that people are really understanding that without a sustainable approach, without putting the planet first, without at least making a consideration of the planetary effects of how we're operating and how we do business, our business is not successful, our customers are not happy, our planet is not healthy. If our planet's not healthy, our economy can't be healthy. So I really see these two as very dependent and related. The cost of waste is huge. You mentioned some of the numbers. I've got some numbers in my head for the distribution space. I think it's around 10 million tons per year that we waste of food in distribution in the US alone, and that's $32 billion. So if you are in the food industry, in the distribution space in the US, these are big numbers. You know, this is a big amount of dollars that is kind of leaving your organization, or kind of that you're not in control of. So that the economic argument, if you look at it purely from a dollars perspective, is huge. How we've started to look at that, and this is probably a good bridge to the kind of the work I'm doing. So I'm currently founding, or kind of about to launch, a startup in the food waste space in partnership with Google, and this is something that Cargill's been investing in the last year. We really believe that our position in the food industry sets us up well to really look at food waste and tackle food waste with our customers, with the food industry, and our partners in this space. What we see is that the cost of waste can be broken down into kind of 4 key areas. So you've got the product value loss. So you've got food that is being wasted that had a value, that value has never been realized or has not materialized because the food has gone to landfill. You've then got the opportunity cost. That food has been there's been kind of transport and fuel and space and labor dedicated to that food to bring it to a warehouse, to get it to an end consumer, or to get it to a restaurant. And if that's been wasted, that is the opportunity cost of all of that has then been wasted. So you've got that. You've got the planetary cost. The planetary cost is not only the opportunity cost of the land, the water, the soil that has been invested in that food, but also if that food goes to landfill, you've got the land gases and methane and emissions. So the cost of waste is just, it spans so many different aspects, and I'm sure there's way more, more elements in terms of cost and impact that we don't even fully understand. What we're doing currently is we're working with Google to think about how we can apply machine learning and AI to this space so that we can support distributors to proactively understand and forecast waste and get ahead of the game and kind of proactively then push the potential wasted food to other alternative buyers who might want to have it. So what we're seeing now in the distributor space is that there's fluctuating demand with COVID, and also now coming out of COVID, there's damaged product, recalled product, customers who make orders that they don't necessarily fulfill, and there's just a ton of surplus food or food that doesn't end up getting to where it needs to be. And so we're trying to address that with AI and machine learning at the moment.
It's a big task. Thank you very much. Ralph?
Yeah, thank you. I want to challenge this a bit, Sophia's statement. I do think the economic incentive is important, critical to, and the good thing is there is a huge one. So maybe a bit of background. 5 years ago, or 5 to 6 years ago, I was back at Amazon, and we worked on a project in food waste management, where I was so startled to hear that between 100 strawberries being harvested on the field, only 50 make it to being consumed. The other 50, they rot on the way there. They rot when they are in the, when they get from the field into the truck that transports them to the distribution center. They rot in the distribution center. They rot in the warehouse that's stored. They rot in the display. And a lot of this, some of it, I think you just got to make the way shorter, so the delay is not so long. That's technology where forecasting helps, AI. What really surprised me is that the way that the quality or that the amount of time that the produce still can be consumed is being judged is completely subjective. And so one starting figure I had is that we collected ourselves that about 20% is the variation in judgment by experts, people whose full-time job it is to judge the ripeness quality of a particular type of fruit. So if you give the, from 100 fruit you show, 20 will be judged differently if shown a half hour later. So I think this is something that then triggered us to work on imaging methods and predictive methods to bring more objectivity into this process, have an algorithm decide and predict how long will a particular fruit, whether it's an avocado or a tomato or a strawberry or a cucumber, last from now on. And if you know that, then you can prioritize the routes better to minimize that. But the driving force, to come back to my initial statement, was an economic one, because the 32 billion that Sophia mentioned, that they're real. That's actually money that you can save not to put on consumers' prices and still run your business the same way, or decide you keep more profit to reinvest in your company. That's a good economic incentive, and I'm sort of happy that it exists because it drives the research in this field forward. Now, to answer your last question, what I'm currently doing is a little bit related, but insofar as the methods that get used themselves, the predictive methods that train, they themselves consume energy, and significantly so if they're using neural networks that are particularly deep or particularly trained on huge amount of training data. And so what I'm currently working on is how can you co-design software and hardware algorithms and the respective hardware so you minimize the energy consumption of AI algorithms while they make accuracy predictions at the same level of accuracy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rolf. And now I would ask Christina, what do you think about this topic?
Thank you, Maria. Yeah, so first of all, I'm not from the food side of things, also not from the fashion side, but I am definitely from the tech side, so hardware side. So I hope that I can bring some interesting facts to the table from there. And also, sorry for that, I fully agree with what you were saying, Sophia. So yeah, I agree that economic opportunities and being sustainable, those are not two different things, right? So it's not the question if you're sustainable or if you make money. I think you can very much combine those two things and look for sustainable business models, right? So at HP, I'm the sustainability manager there, and this is what I'm also focusing on. So we're looking at, basically, if we design a product, we already look at the whole life cycle of a product, right? So we are trying to make it sustainable from the start until the end. So if we look at the beginning of the life cycle of a product, we're thinking about the recycled materials or the sustainable materials that we're using in a product, right? So think about recycled plastics, also ocean-bound plastic, so plastic that is actually on its way to the ocean. All of this is being used in our new products, right? So I think this is a very important area where you can reduce waste by using kind of recycled materials and sustainable materials. Also, if you look at the packaging, it's important to use recycled fiber for the packaging and also for the paper that we use to print, right? So also there you can use sustainable materials that then makes the product sustainable. And then if you look at the end of the life cycle, so what happens with the product once the user doesn't want to have it anymore, it's not only that you want to keep the product in your cellar and never use it again, it's just being lost and dumped there. This is not what we want, right? We actually want to make sure that we get a lot of devices back. Think about programs like, we call it device recovery service, where a product is being taken back, then refurbished and sold again. So this is also really valuable, right? We don't want to have one life for a product, we want to have multiple lives for a product. And if your question was as well, if it should be incentivized, right?
If there is a commercial incentive behind adoption and transformation.
Yeah, so I think if customers, consumers and businesses both, are demanding, that drives all of that. And if we look at the environment right now, currently some public organizations, especially if we look at France, there are guidelines that a specific percentage of products, of IT hardware products that are being bought, are actually refurbished devices. So I think that governments have guidelines on that, currently still guidelines, but they will definitely implement that as regulations in the future. And customers are becoming more and more demanding. So I think if that comes from the customer side, businesses will automatically have to act. And so I think there are a lot of demanding customers in the tech industry right now. So I think definitely things are shifting, which is great.
That's fabulous. And Christina, but compared with, everyone looks at fashion and food as the biggest polluters, right? How do you think that in your case, your industry sector has been ahead of thinking about circularity, and that's why it doesn't come normally at the top of the biggest polluter industry in the world? Do you think that's the case, or is there a possibility that the conversation was not yet to a level where people understand the full impact that electronics have in the environment?
Well, I do believe that people have an understanding of the impact that electronics have, right? I mean, also look at data centers, how much energy they use. I think that is very much, that consumers are very much aware of that. But yeah, then changing this behavior, this is just a different thing, right? But I do believe that people are aware of that. So, yeah.
And so your industry has been, proactively looking into some circular elements like reutilization of materials and
yeah,
and looking at that.
indeed. So it's basically, if we look at HP, right, we can see that circularity is really embedded in our whole strategy. So it's about developing not only circular products but also circular services. Laptops are not only being sold transactional but also as a service, which is more sustainable than a transactional sale, because then at the end of the life we get those products back and then we can decide what happens with those products. We can take them apart, we can put new parts in there, we can sell them again, and this automatically minimizes the impact that we have on the environment.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And now, Alexander, fashion.
Yep, I came from fashion industry. It's really an efficient one, and it's like third biggest pollutant in the world after energy and transportation. And there is a lot of things to really improve in this sector. So there is a huge waste of especially in fast fashion. It's about third part of the all produced items have never been sold, so they're gonna be dumped after like a new collection come out. And also, everyone, not everyone, but most of us has and wardrobe some outfits we just never wore. So we bought it and it's not fitted properly for us, or probably it's not really what we want, or it's go out of trend. So there is a lot of opportunity to make this to find out how find a sustainable thing is. So what we're working on now, we're working on a digital virtual fitting platform. It's gonna be fitted properly on your body fit. So just making your 3D avatar and properly, precisely wearing what you're planning to buy. So just the biggest problem you cannot find. It's like everything's going online now, and everybody most of the people actually buying through few sizes, then fit it, and then return it back. So this is huge impact on the ecology. So it's about 2.5% of the all carbon waste is coming onto the transportation and fashion industry on the return as well. So if we have the proper sizing, so just you can buy only what you exactly want to buy. And another thing is moving more in the digitalization of fashion. So if we have outfits we never gonna wear, so we need it just only for taking pictures on a social media or something else, so we can buy a digital outfit instead of a real one. The big problem in the fashion industry and transportation and logistics. So our outfit traveling much more than we are. So it was produced in a different fabric. It might be laid 1,000 kilometers away from there. And what they're doing as well, so we're finding out how to optimize localization of the supply chain. So we find a localized supply chain in different areas, so to reduce the waste on the transportation. So yeah.
Well, it's a very complex problem as well. So let's move to who do we think, is doing best in terms of any good examples of what good looks like in each one of your industries, starting with food, then maybe fashion again, and then here in the electronics, an example of what good looks like on reducing waste in the supply chain, as precise as you can be, of course.
Yeah, so there's so much going on in the food industry. You've all seen, and you all probably know of Too Good To Go, and there's, I think Leonardo DiCaprio tweeted about Too Good To Go over the last week, and it kind of blew up on LinkedIn. So there's a lot of kind of platform and apps connecting people with surplus food. I think that's a big one. Not much AI involved there, though. There is a lot around imagery, so using... there's a product called Lean Path that I know a lot of people use that really tells you what's showing up in your waste. Kind of if you're a restaurant or if you're a catering company and you have a kitchen. I think where there's space to grow is really like a lot of the solutions now are focused on there's waste. What do we do with it? How do we get it? How do we get it kind of to another consumer, or how do we kind of create data on that waste so that you know what you're dealing with? I think where we can get better and where we can really apply machine learning and AI is at the prevention, at the point of prevention. So how do we apply data and AI and machine learning to prevent waste from occurring so that it never gets to the point where a restaurant needs to hand it over to a consumer because they've bought too much or they haven't sold enough. So I really think there's a lot more, there's a lot that can be done still in that prevention space.
Thank you. Alexander?
So we're talking about how AI can help in our industry. The first of all, this of course it's transportation logistic. Find out this like localize the supply chain in the first item, and also there's turning from standardization of production line to customization. And then in the future is probably as I believe it's gonna be like all in demand. So just like we do not need to produce the huge stock of markets. So it's gonna be like dumped after like season is end up. So we're gonna turn to the customized production line, and you can like pre-order it in like 1 week, and 1 week you will get your outfit exactly properly fitted on you. So this is gonna be quite huge impact on reducing waste.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Christina?
So yeah, how does good look like in the tech industry if we want to make it sustainable? I already spoke about like sustainable products per se, right? So of course, looking at the materials we want to use, and then also sustainable modes of transportation, and then also packaging. I do believe that from a packaging standpoint, there are improvements necessary. Like
because there's regulation, right? There's regulation for packaging now, plastic taxes. So,
there is, yeah, single-use plastic directive and things like that, exactly. So on that side, we can look more into the reusability of packaging, right? Think about the packaging that all of you use. You throw it away, I assume, yeah? But especially in, when you sell laptops, for example, why shouldn't you take back the primary packaging of this product and put new products in, right? Mm-hmm. Of course, it's a logistical challenge, but I think that in this area, there's a lot of improvement opportunity. Mm-hmm. Then also, if you look at educating our users, consumers and businesses in both ways, very rarely consumers or businesses are aware of the residual value that devices still have at their end of life. So I think educating them that a device is, if it's broken or if they don't want to have it anymore, it still has a residual value. I think that's important. That's important because we need the devices back in order to sell refurbished devices, of course. And yeah, different countries have different take-back quotes as well. So for example, Switzerland, they have an extremely high take-back quote, because consumers are aware of the fact that this device still has a value, and they need to make sure that these materials are being used again. So I think there the education of consumers is really going well. But in general, I think that there's a lot of improvement opportunity on the education itself. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. And Ralph, for you, slightly different question. So, because you said that commercial impact was important, I'm wondering if you could give your opinion on ESG, non-financial metric considerations, the impact that they have in investment, and what could regulators do to help? That is probably a talk by itself, but I just wanted to see what are your takes on the investment side, and how much of the non-financial metrics you think should be contributing for those investment decisions?
Maybe just to clarify when I said the economic impact, and I think I'll tie it back then. What I meant is, Mary was said later, sustainability and economic feasibility are not at odds. I think for a sustainable supply chain or sustainable compute to really stick, it's important that there is an economic impact, but they're not at odds. Now for the ESG question, I think one of the panelists, Sophia, not Sophia, I remember said it's most important to focus on the consumer, on the customer. Like as a business, when you sell products, whether you sell fashion or you sell food online or you sell electronics, one part is of course your cost structure, and that's where sustainability is not at odds, because if you can save compute costs, if you can save waste in the food industry, if you can save returns in the fashion industry because you're more accurately predicting, you minimize your own costs, and that's generally putting you in a better economic scenario. So on that sense, but other ESG, but the other side that's equally important is that your consumer wants to buy the product from you if you are in some competitive market. And I think the awareness in society, luckily, because of the sort of climatological impact that having not sustainable production and supply chains for a long time is very much in the consumer's mindset. I feel that many of the ESGs are naturally economically the right things to focus on, because that's where you will generate your demand. That's what a lot of consumers want when they buy fashion, when they buy food, and when they buy consumer electronics and many other products. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, no, very interesting. And we are, finishing the panel here. I would really like, and starting with you, Ralph, a call to action. What do you think it's important, in your view, to have as a focus for the next few years? What is the focus and what is the call to action from you? And then I will ask for everyone here in the panel to also give their call to action.
I think one big call to action that I see is to see all these business opportunities that come from second, third, or fourth order usage, fourth time usage of a given product. So for fashion, for example, a lot of the fast fashion gets destroyed or doesn't even get worn and destroyed. But that's a market opportunity for consumer electronics, for devices that were talked about. Unless they're really physically broken, they still have a second life. For batteries in our EV vehicles, they come to an end the first generation. They're still 80% healthy. There is a second life for them that's actually going to increase the circular value and the sustainability for the whole planet. So my statement is focus on the business opportunities that in second and third life usage of a lot of the consumer products, whether it's food, fashion, or even batteries.
Thank you very much. Alexander, your call to action.
As Ralph and Christine told about educating the customers, there's the most important thing is like a shifting to the customer's mind in the more consumption, conscious consumption. So this is the way to go into the sustainability. And after this is gonna like in their own way they lead to the conscious production. So there's like this in demand and yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Please, Sophia.
I think from what I've seen in the last year, as we've been looking into food waste, the gaps in data, the gaps in technology, the fact that so many of the things we're doing in the food industry are still done without proper insight, creates waste. Like lack of data, lack of technology, lack of insight, lack of kind of the ability to act from a place of knowing rather than guessing creates waste. So I would say my call to action and the call to action for this group, data, technology, if we can apply these two to the problem, I think we'll move forward in a much better way.
Thank you. Christina.
Yeah. So my call to action to all of you is to be critical, to be demanding, because I believe only if consumers or businesses are demanding and they say what they want, only then business models change and only then sustainable products and solutions will be created. So, yeah. Short one here.
Thank you very much. And my call to action to all of you is keep the conversation going. The panelists will be very happy to continue the conversation with you. So if you have any questions, unfortunately we don't have time at the moment, but I'm sure they will be happy to respond. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Nice. That was great. We might need less chairs for the next bit. the question of economics can easily be answered with the triple bottom line accounting. So people, planet, and profit. So if we look at everything through that lens, then that feels like a lens that we can approach how we deal with the economics of a situation, as well as, oh, I love you talking. That's so nice. But hello, if you're moving away, maybe you could wait till you get outside before you talk, because we're going to welcome other speakers in. Oh, hey, busy person putting jacket on. No, anyway, let's move on here.